Second guesses for me, because a whole bunch of Chelsea fans are getting in touch this morning. And basically the theme of the question, Simon, is what can we expect under Thomas Tuchel? So as we know, Frank backed youth. James, Abraham, Mount, Gilmour, the players you mentioned at the top quite rightly. But what about Tuchel? And Lampard's statement in itself yesterday was significant when he said, I am proud of the achievements we made. I'm proud of the academy players who made that step into the first team and performed so well. They are the future of the club.
Yeah.
So what's Tuchel going to do?
Obviously, when Frank Arneson was brought in years ago, when Frank was taken from Tottenham as director of football, he was very at the front foot of Chelsea building an idea behind their youth development and taking all the best youth development around the world. Chelsea have had challenges with that.
Yeah.
To go to your question, Tuchel will do precisely what Mourinho did 5-6 years ago when he came back to Chelsea, which is go to what he thinks is established talent and goes to what he thinks will get him instantaneous on-the-ground results. Now, that then puts the players like Billy Gilmour in challenge, specifically Billy Gilmour to some extent, because he's a very young player coming into the side and very recent arrival.
19.
Very good player, by the way, as well. And I think those guys may find themselves falling by the wayside. But it becomes incumbent upon them to force their way into the side, because I'm sure, you know, Mbappe was a young player. I know he was a bit more established in the eyes and minds of the world, but still a young player. But I think the Tuchels of the world won't mess about. They'll go for what they think is. I remember looking at Chelsea with Mourinho, and he insisted, I know I've got a bit of a dog in the fight here, he insisted upon playing Oscar over Victor Moses. Didn't give Victor Moses a looking, because as far as he was concerned, Victor Moses was somebody that really wasn't on his radar, wasn't an established player, being at Palace, being at Wigan, wasn't this, wasn't that, wasn't the other. Where's Oscar now? He's playing in China for a big bag of money, and Victor Moses has gone to win Champions Leagues with Chelsea and played for Liverpool and Inter Milan. So I think these guys, they are a little bit at times one-dimensional in their view, but they go to what is a guaranteed outcome as far as they're concerned. Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're putting together all these conspiracy theories that because he's managed in Germany, these German players now are automatically going to turn it on for him.
No, but that's true. I mean, it's a relevant point. And what about Chelsea's DNA, if you like, the direction of travel that they have chosen to go in? Will that now change? And should they be criticised? Should Abramovich, Bruce Buck, Marina Granovskaya and the rest of them, should they be criticised if Tuchel comes in with a different dimension?
But what is their DNA? I mean, their DNA is to pretty much over the years since he walked through the door in 2003 and then brought Mourinho in 2004 to buy the best players, to spend as much money as they possibly can, and to have a huge ambition and scant tolerance of people's shortcomings. Yeah. So what is their DNA? And part of that would be that Abramovich turns around and says, right, well, a part of my notion is I want the best youth academy, so I'm going to take all the best young players. That's why Chelsea got smacked a couple of years ago for the way that they handled young players in terms of their pursuit of young players, their fines they got from UEFA for certain contraventions of rules and policies that they were being put under fire for. But the notion that Chelsea actually have a DNA... Listen, I like Chelsea. I signed schoolboy forms for Chelsea as a kid. You know, I grew up watching Palace as my team and liking Chelsea as another side. But ultimately, what is the DNA of Chelsea? It's a very ambitious, wealthy, driven owner that's been absolutely committed to that football club and doesn't tolerate any short-term failings in his mind. And he sets the idea of what failings are. Yeah. And in this instance with Frank Lampard, and it's not a love-in, because I was the first person out of the gate 18 months ago to say Frank Lampard it's the wrong decision for him to go to Chelsea because it's too early for him. He hasn't got a management team around him. I think probably Frank Lampard needed a Ray Wilkins, God rest his soul, in the mix to give him that sort of experience and balance. Yeah. It's no surprise that Wilkins formed part of many successful management setups in Chelsea during his time there. Sure. But the notion that Chelsea have a DNA, well, you tell me what their DNA is. Their DNA is to change managers whenever the owner thinks that they're not hitting their straps.